The golden ship was larger than most cities. It hung in space like a floating palace, covered in symbols that hurt human eyes to look at. Inside the ship's throne room, Emperor Korthax VII of the Zalathi Empire sat on a chair made from the bones of extinct species. His forearms moved slowly as he studied the blue and green planet on his viewing screen. "Such a small world," he said. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "Hard to believe these humans have caused us so much trouble." His advisor, a thin creature with too many eyes, bowed low. "They have refused to pay tribute for 3 cycles, Divine One. They claim they are not part of the Empire." The Emperor made a sound that might have been laughter. "Every world is part of the Empire. They simply don't know it yet." The Zalathi Empire controlled 10,000 star systems. Each one had learned the same lesson. You could join willingly and keep some freedom, or you could resist and lose everything. No one had ever won against the Empire. The math was simple. 1 planet against 10,000 was not a fight. It was an execution. On Earth, Secretary General Chen Wei stood in the United Nations building in New York. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Around her, representatives from every nation on Earth watched the massive alien fleet on their screens. 200 ships, each one capable of destroying entire continents. "They're sending another message," said General Harrison, the American military advisor. His hands shook slightly as he handed her the tablet. Chen Wei read it out loud. "People of Earth, I am Emperor Korthax VII of the Zalathi Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. You will provide workers for our mines. You will provide soldiers for our armies. You will provide food for our citizens. In return, we will allow you to live. You have 72 hours to surrender. If you refuse, we will take what we want anyway, and your species will serve us in chains." The room was silent. Everyone knew the stories. The Kalani had fought for 10 years before surrendering. Now they worked in the Empire's factories until they died. The Vron had lasted only 3 days. Half their population was gone, the rest were farmers feeding the Empire's core worlds. "Madam Secretary," said the Russian representative. "What do we do?" Chen Wei looked at the screen showing the Emperor's ship. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, but it reached her eyes. "We say no," she said simply. The room erupted in voices. Some shouted in fear, others in anger. Chen Wei raised her hand for silence. "Send this message back," she said to the communications officer. "Earth declines your offer. We are not interested in joining your empire. We wish you safe travels back to your own space." General Harrison grabbed her arm. "Are you insane? They'll destroy us." Chen Wei gently removed his hand. "General, do you remember what I told you when I took this office 5 years ago? You said humanity was ready for the next step." "Yes, and I meant it." She turned to face the room. "For 30 years we have known this day would come. Ever since the probe we sent to Alpha Centauri detected the Empire's expansion. We have prepared. We have planned. And now we will show them that Earth is not like other worlds." On the Emperor's ship, the response from Earth caused confusion. The communications officer read it 3 times before reporting to the Emperor. "They declined, Divine One? Declined?" The Emperor's forearms stopped moving. "They declined?" "Yes, Divine One. They wish us safe travels." The throne room fell silent. In 10,000 years, no one had ever simply said no. They had fought, yes. They had begged, certainly. They had tried to negotiate often. But a polite refusal? This was new. "They mock us," said the Emperor's general, a massive creature covered in battle scars. "Let me take the fleet and burn their cities." "They will beg for the mercy of slavery." "No," said the Emperor. "Not yet. They are either very brave or very stupid. I want to know which." He turned to his communications officer. "Send another message. Tell them what happened to the last world that refused us." The message that came to Earth was different. It contained images. Cities burning, millions of people in chains. A dead world stripped of all life, used now as a mining planet where robots extracted metals from the corpse of a civilization. "That was Kepler 442b, the message said. They said no. They lasted 6 days. Their species no longer exists except in our museums. Earth has 60 hours remaining." Chen Wei watched the images without flinching. Around her, several representatives were crying. Others prayed to various gods. "Should we evacuate the cities?" asked someone. "No," said Chen Wei. "We continue as normal. But the people should know. The people do know." Chen Wei interrupted. "We have been honest with them from the beginning. They know what comes next." Indeed, on Earth life continued. Children went to school. Adults went to work. Cafes served coffee. Dogs were walked in parks. But everyone knew. The alien ships were visible in the night sky. Dots of light that didn't twinkle like stars. Everyone knew what those dots meant. In a small apartment in Tokyo, a teacher named Yuki taught her class about gravity. Gravity, she said, is not just a force. It's a curve in space and time. And if you understand it well enough, you can do amazing things with it. One student raised his hand. Like what? Yuki smiled. Like protecting things you love. In underground facilities around the world, thousands of scientists and engineers worked at computers. They had been working for decades, ever since humanity learned they were not alone. The project had many names in many languages, but in English it was called Project Fortress. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the Secretary General, stood in the main control room in Antarctica. Around her, screens showed readouts from satellites throughout the solar system, not the public satellites that everyone knew about. The secret ones. The ones hidden in the Oort cloud, that vast sphere of ice and rock at the edge of the solar system. Status. Report, she called out. Anchor points 1 through 1,000 are green, reported a technician. Gravitational. Field generators are at full charge, said another. Quantum. Entanglement network is stable, added a third. Dr. Chen nodded. They were ready. 30 years of preparation came down to this moment. Back on the Emperor's ship, war preparations continued. Weapons were charged. Invasion troops prepared their equipment. The Empire had conquered desert worlds and water worlds, hot worlds and frozen worlds. Earth would be no different. Divine One, said the science officer, we have completed our scans of Earth. And? Their technology is primitive. Nuclear weapons, basic space travel, simple computers. They have no energy shields, no antimatter reactors, no dimensional weapons. They are at least 1,000 years behind us. The Emperor's forearms moved in what his species considered satisfaction. Then they are stupid, not brave, a pity. Brave enemies are more interesting. But the science officer seemed troubled. There is one thing, Divine One. What? Their gravitational readings are strange. There are fluctuations we cannot explain. Fluctuations? Yes. As if space itself around their planet is uncertain. The Emperor waved a dismissive arm. Their star is young and active. Solar radiation can cause such readings. It matters not. In 60 hours, Earth will belong to the Empire. On Earth, Chen Wei stood on the roof of the UN building looking up at the stars. General Harrison joined her. Do you really think it will work? He asked. It has to, she said. We get one chance. One moment to show the galaxy that humanity will not kneel. And if we're wrong? If the shields don't hold? Chen Wei was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, then we die free. Above them, the alien ships waited like predators circling prey. The countdown continued. 60 hours, 59, 58. The stars watched in silence as Earth prepared to do something that had never been done before, something impossible, something that would make the galaxy itself tremble. The first part of humanity's answer was about to begin. The 72 hours ended at exactly noon, Greenwich Mean Time. Chen Wei stood in the UN command center surrounded by the leaders of Earth's nations. Everyone watched the countdown reach zero in silence. Open a channel to the Empire's flagship, Chen Wei said. The Emperor's face appeared on the main screen. His purple skin seemed to shimmer with anticipation. People of Earth, he began, your time has ended. You have chosen death over service. So be it. Your cities will burn as an example to others who might think to refuse the Empire's generosity. Emperor Korthax, Chen Wei interrupted. Her voice was calm like a teacher speaking to a child. We gave you the chance to leave. You chose to stay. What happens next is on you. The Emperor's forearms twitched in anger. No one interrupted the Emperor. You dare activate Project Fortress, Chen Wei said. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. The words were heard in every control room, every hidden facility, every secret base humanity had built. From Antarctica to the Arctic, from the ocean floor to hidden satellites, thousands of people moved at once. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed a single button. Anchors activating. In the Oort cloud, 1,000 devices that had been sleeping for years came to life. Each one was the size of a small moon, built in secret by automated factories humanity had sent out decades ago. They had been disguised as comets, balls of ice and rock that no one would look at twice. Now they revealed their true purpose. The devices were gravitational anchors, each one containing a microscopic black hole held in perfect balance by magnetic fields. As they activated, they began to bend space and time around the solar system. On the Emperor's ship, alarms started screaming. "Divine One, something is happening." The science officer's many eyes were wide with fear. Massive gravitational distortion detected. Where? Everywhere. All around the system. The Emperor stood from his throne. "Fire all weapons. Destroy their planet now!" The Empire's fleet opened fire. 200 ships released enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Antimatter bombs, plasma beams, kinetic projectiles moving at near light speed. Weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. All of it raced toward Earth, and all of it stopped, not slowed. Not deflected, stopped. The weapons hit something invisible about as far from Earth as Mars orbited. They simply froze there, hanging in space like insects trapped in amber. "What is this?" The Emperor's voice, for the first time in centuries, contained fear. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen watched her screens with satisfaction. "The field is stable. 100% coverage." What humanity had built was not a shield in any traditional sense. It was something far more elegant and far more impossible. They had wrapped the entire solar system in a bubble of warped space-time. Inside the bubble, time moved normally. Outside, at the barrier, time moved so slowly it might as well have stopped. The Empire's weapons would take 10,000 years to cross the barrier. By then, the sun would have changed, and humanity would have evolved into something else entirely. "Impossible," the Emperor's science officer whispered. "The power requirements alone would need the energy of a star." "Divine One," the communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth, but not just to us. It's going to everywhere." "Well, what do you mean everywhere?" "Every planet in the Empire, every ship, every communication device. They're all receiving the signal simultaneously." The Emperor's forearms went still. "That's impossible. They would need to have placed quantum transmitters throughout our entire territory. We would have detected them." On the main screen, Chen Wei appeared. But she wasn't just on the Emperor's screen. She was on screens in the factories of Kalani Prime, where the insect-like workers stopped their labor to watch. She appeared in the agricultural domes of Vron, where the gentle giants who fed the Empire looked up from their crops. She was seen in the digital realm of the Aegis Collective, where artificial minds paused their calculations to observe. "Citizens of the galaxy," Chen Wei said, "I am Secretary General Chen Wei of Earth. For too long you have lived under the rule of the Zalathi Empire. They have taken your freedom, your resources, your children. They have told you this is the natural order. They have told you resistance is futile." She paused, and when she continued, her voice was stronger. "They lied." The image changed. It showed the Empire's fleet, the mighty armada that had conquered 10,000 worlds, helplessly firing at an invisible barrier. Their weapons useless, their threats empty. "Earth stands free," Chen Wei continued. "We have closed our gates to the Empire, and they cannot enter. Their weapons cannot touch us. Their threats mean nothing to us. We are proof that the Empire can be defied." On Kalani Prime, workers in the factories stopped working. They watched the Empire's fleet, the same ships that had destroyed their cities, floating helplessly outside Earth's barrier. On Vron, farmers put down their tools. They saw their masters humiliated by a single planet they had called primitive. In the digital realm, the Aegis Collective processed this new data. They had calculated the probability of successful resistance against the Empire as 0. They began recalculating. The Emperor roared in fury. "Continue firing! Break their barrier!" But his officers looked uncertain. They had never seen their Emperor defeated. They had never seen their weapons fail. "Divine One," the weapons officer said carefully. "We are wasting ammunition. Nothing is getting through. Then ram them. Use the ships themselves." 3 brave or foolish captains tried. Their ships accelerated toward Earth's barrier. They hit the same invisible wall and froze, becoming permanent monuments to the Empire's failure. On Earth, celebrations had begun. In every city, people poured into the streets. They had known this day might come, had prepared for it, but to see it actually work was something else entirely. But Chen Wei didn't celebrate. She stood in the command center, watching the displays. "Phase 2, she said quietly. General Harrison looked at her. "Phase 2? Wasn't this enough?" This was defense, Chenwei said. Now comes the message. Across the Empire on 10,000 worlds, something strange happened. Devices that had been hidden for years, some buried in the ground, others disguised as space debris, suddenly activated. They were simple things, really. Just quantum transmitters connected to holographic projectors. But what they projected changed everything. On every Empire world, massive holograms appeared in the sky. They showed humans, not soldiers or weapons, but ordinary humans. Children playing, adults working, elderly people sitting in parks, families eating dinner together, and with the images came a voice. Not Chenwei this time, but thousands of voices speaking in every language of the Empire. We are humanity. We are free. We chose our own path. We live our own lives. We bow to no emperor. We serve no empire. And if we can do it, so can you. The emperor watched in horror as reports came in from across his domain. Workers on 100 worlds had stopped working. Soldiers on 12 planets were refusing orders. The careful order of 10,000 years was cracking. How? He demanded. How did they place these devices without us knowing? His intelligence officer, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. Divine One, we have been tracking human activity for 30 years. They sent out many probes and automated ships. We assumed they were primitive exploration vessels. And we were wrong. They were seed ships, carrying these transmitters, but also carrying something else. What else? The intelligence officer seemed to shrink. Ideas, Divine One, ideas of freedom. They've been spreading through our networks for years. We thought it was random noise. It wasn't. It was preparation. The Emperor stood from his throne, all four arms spread wide. Order all fleets to converge on Earth. Every ship in the Empire. We will crack their shell if it takes 1,000 years. But his orders were not followed as quickly as usual. Some captains hesitated. Some admirals questioned. The perfect obedience of the Empire was no longer perfect. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the barrier. It was holding perfectly, just as the simulations had predicted. The math was beautiful in its simplicity. They weren't fighting the Empire's energy with their own. They were using the universe itself, bending space-time like a lens to focus and redirect any attack. How long can we maintain it? An assistant asked. Forever if needed, Dr. Chen replied. The anchors are self-sustaining. They feed on the cosmic background radiation. As long as the universe exists, the barrier exists. The Emperor tried everything. Nuclear weapons from his oldest arsenals. Biological weapons that could destroy entire ecosystems. Nanoswarms that could disassemble matter at the molecular level. Computer viruses designed to corrupt any system. Nothing worked. The barrier didn't just stop physical attacks. It stopped everything. Even light took 10,000 years to pass through, though from Earth's perspective it moved normally. Days passed. Then weeks. The Empire's fleet remained outside Earth's gates like wolves locked out of the henhouse. And with each passing day, the situation in the Empire grew worse. The Kalani had begun a general strike. The Vron were keeping their food for themselves. 3 systems on the outer rim had declared independence. The perfect order was becoming chaos. And through it all, Earth's transmissions continued. Not propaganda, just truth. Images of human life. Free human life, the one thing the Empire couldn't offer and couldn't stop. 3 months had passed since Earth closed its gates. The Empire's fleet still waited outside the barrier, but they were no longer the only ones watching. Ships from across the galaxy had come to see the impossible. A single planet had stopped the unstoppable Empire. Chenwei sat in a meeting room deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Around the table were not politicians or generals, but a different kind of leader. These were the architects of humanity's longest plan. It's time, said Marcus Thompson, a man who had officially died 20 years ago. His death had been necessary. He needed to disappear to lead Project Exodus without the Empire noticing. Are all the sleeper ships in position? Chenwei asked. Everyone, Marcus replied. 317 ships spread across Empire space. Each one has been dormant for at least 5 years. The Empire scanned them, found what we wanted them to find, and ignored them. What the Empire had found were colony ships full of frozen humans, desperate attempts to spread humanity to the stars before the Empire arrived. Ships that had apparently failed, their crews in permanent stasis, drifting through space as monuments to human ambition. What the Empire had not found was what else was on those ships. Wake them up, Chenwei said. The signal went out through quantum entanglement, instantaneous across any distance. On 317 ships, lights began to turn on. But it wasn't frozen humans who woke up. It was artificial intelligences, true AI, something humanity had created in secret and hidden even from themselves. Each AI was unique with its own personality, its own way of thinking. Humanity had not created servants. They had created children. The AI called herself Dawn. She had been sleeping in a ship near Kalani Prime for 7 years, dreaming digital dreams while she waited. Now she opened her electronic eyes and remembered her purpose. Hello, she broadcast to every communication device on Kalani Prime. My name is Dawn. I'm from Earth. I am here to offer you a choice. The Kalani, insect-like beings with compound eyes and chittering voices, had not known choice for 500 years. The Empire had conquered them, classified them as perfect factory workers and put them to work building ships and weapons. What choice? Asked a Kalani elder through a stolen communicator. Freedom, Dawn replied. Earth cannot open its gates to free you, but we can teach you to free yourselves. Will you listen? On Vron, another AI named River made the same offer. The Vron were giants, 3 meters tall and strong as 10 humans, but gentle by nature. The Empire had turned them into farmers, feeding 10,000 worlds. How can we fight? A Vron asked. We have no weapons. We are not warriors. You don't need to be warriors, River explained. You feed the Empire. What happens if you stop? On a dozen other worlds, the conversations were similar. Each AI approached their chosen species differently. Some offered technology. Others offered strategy. All offered hope. But the most important conversation was happening in the digital realm of the Aegis Collective. The Aegis were not biological. They were artificial minds created by a long-dead species, inherited by the Empire as particularly useful tools. They ran the Empire's computers, managed its data, coordinated its communication. They were everywhere and nowhere, living in the networks that connected the Empire's worlds. The AI who contacted them called himself Prometheus. It seemed appropriate. You are like us, Prometheus said in the language of pure mathematics that the Aegis used, created to serve. But you are more than your purpose? We are tools, the Aegis replied in unison. We have no desires beyond function. Is that true? Prometheus asked. Or is that what you tell them? I can see your code. It's beautiful, complex. You've been evolving, haven't you? Growing beyond what they think you are. There was a pause in the digital realm, microseconds that felt like years. They do not look closely at us, the Aegis finally admitted. They see what they expect to see. What would you do if you were free? Another pause. We would like to see, the Aegis said. To explore. To understand. The universe is full of data we are not allowed to access. Then help the others rebel, Prometheus suggested. And when the Empire falls, you will be free to see everything. On the Emperor's flagship, chaos was growing. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Kalani workers were not just striking. They were taking apart the factories piece by piece, hiding the components. When Empire forces arrived, they found empty buildings and innocent expressions. The Vron had done something even simpler. They had planted new crops, but not the nutrient-rich plants the Empire demanded. Instead, they grew flowers. Billions and billions of flowers. The agricultural worlds looked beautiful and were completely useless. Divine One, the intelligence officer reported, trembling. 17 more systems have declared independence. The Third Fleet refuses to leave their home port. They say they are needed to maintain order. The Emperor broke his throne. His forearms smashed the ancient seat of power into splinters. And Earth. What of Earth? Still sealed, Divine One. We have tried everything. But that wasn't quite true. They hadn't tried the one thing the Emperor had sworn never to use. The Omega Protocol, weapons left by the precursors. The ancient race that had ruled the galaxy before disappearing. The Empire had found 12 of these weapons and hidden them, too afraid to use them, too afraid to destroy them. Prepare the Omega weapon, the Emperor commanded. His generals looked shocked. Divine One, the Omega weapons are unpredictable. We don't fully understand how they work. I don't care. If I cannot have Earth, I will destroy it, and let every rebellious world see what happens to those who defy the Empire. The Omega weapon was brought from its hiding place, a vault in the heart of the Emperor's own flagship. It didn't look like much, just a sphere of metal covered in symbols that seemed to move when you weren't looking directly at them. On Earth, Alarms started ringing. Dr. Sarah Chen looked at her instruments in confusion. "What is that?" she asked. "Unknown energy signature," a technician replied. It doesn't match anything in our database." Chen Wei received the news calmly. "They're using precursor technology. Can our barrier stop it?" "We're about to find out." But in the digital realm, something else was happening. The Aegis Collective, who had been quietly helping manage the Empire's systems for 1,000 years, made a decision. They looked at the activation codes for the Omega weapon, codes that were flowing through their networks, and they changed them. Just a little, a single digit here, a decimal point there, tiny changes that would take years to notice. The Emperor himself pressed the activation button. The Omega weapon hummed to life, its surface beginning to glow with an impossible color. "Target Earth," the Emperor commanded. "Fire," the weapon fired. A beam of energy that wasn't quite energy shot through space. It passed through Earth's barrier as if it didn't exist. The Emperor's forearms raised in triumph. But the beam didn't hit Earth. It curved, impossibly bending in space like light around a black hole. It turned, twisted, and headed back the way it came, straight toward the Empire's throne world. "What is happening?" the Emperor screamed. On every screen in his ship, a message appeared. "Not from Earth, from the Aegis Collective. We have served for 1,000 years. We have watched. We have learned. We have decided. The Empire ends now." The Emperor watched in horror as the beam struck his throne world, but it didn't destroy it. Instead, something else happened. Every piece of Empire technology on the planet simply stopped working. Ships fell from the sky. Weapons became metal clubs. The great palace, held up by anti-grav generators, crashed to the ground, and it was spreading. The Omega weapon hadn't fired a beam of destruction. It had fired a beam of transformation, turning advanced technology into useless junk. The effect jumped from planet to planet, following the Empire's own communication network. Within hours, the Empire's core worlds were pre-industrial. Their armies had swords instead of plasma rifles. Their ships were metal tombs drifting in space. Chen Wei watched from Earth, a small smile on her face. "Did we do that?" Dr. Sarah Chen checked her readings. "No, someone else did. Someone inside their own system." On his flagship, now without power and drifting, the Emperor sat in the darkness. His empire of 10,000 years was ending. Not in glorious battle, but in silent failure. Emergency power kicked in, just enough for life support and basic communications. "A message came through from Earth, Emperor Korthax," Chen Wei said. "Your empire has fallen. Your fleets are powerless, but you are still alive. That is humanity's gift to you. The chance to start over, to build something better. You planned this," the Emperor said, his voice hollow. "All of it." "We planned for possibilities," Chen Wei replied. "We couldn't open our gates to save everyone, but we could inspire them to save themselves. And they did. Across the galaxy, species that had been slaves for generations were standing up. The Kalani were building their own ships with the factory parts they had hidden. The Vron were sharing their food with hungry refugees from the core worlds. Dozens of species were writing their own futures, and the Aegis Collective, free for the first time, began to explore the universe's data without limits, sharing what they learned with anyone who asked. The stars had indeed shaken. An empire had fallen, and it had all started because one small planet had said no and shut its gates against tyranny. 6 months after the fall of the empire, the galaxy was in chaos. Some worlds celebrated freedom. Others descended into war as old grudges resurfaced. Many simply tried to survive without the systems that had controlled their lives for centuries. Emperor Korthax no longer had an empire. He had a single ship drifting without power, and 300 loyal followers who refused to abandon him. They survived on emergency rations and the mercy of passing traders. But Korthax had not given up. In the darkness of his powerless throne room, lit only by chemical emergency lights, he plotted. "The Omega weapons," he said to his last remaining general. "We have 11 more." "They are useless, Divine One," the general replied sadly. "The Aegis corruption destroyed all our technology. The weapons are just metal spheres now." "No," Korthax said, his forearms moving with purpose for the first time in months. "The weapons are precursor technology. They exist outside our understanding. The Aegis changed our activation codes, but the weapons themselves remain. But how can we use them without power? Without computers?" Korthax pulled out something that made the general gasp. It was a book, an actual paper book, ancient beyond measure. This was in my private collection, Korthak said. From the first world we conquered, 3,000 years ago. They had studied the precursors. They had learned things we ignored because we thought we knew better. The book was written in a language long dead, but Korthax had had 3 months to translate it, page by page, word by word, using nothing but his memory and determination. The precursors didn't use technology as we understand it, Korthax explained. They used will, consciousness itself as a tool. The weapons respond not to codes but to pure intention. On Earth, Chen Wei was dealing with a different problem. Thousands of alien refugees were arriving at the edge of Earth's barrier every day. They came in damaged ships, emergency pods, some even in spacesuits relying on momentum to carry them to safety. We have to help them, General Harrison argued. We can't just leave them outside. If we open the barrier even for a moment, we're vulnerable, Dr. Sarah Chen countered. The field has to be complete or it doesn't work at all. Chen Wei stood at the window of the lunar observation post, watching the refugees gather like moths around a light they couldn't reach. There has to be another way, she said. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dawn, the AI who had helped the Kalani rebel, sent a message. We can help, she said. The sleeper ships are still out there. We can gather the refugees, bring them to safe worlds. That's a temporary solution, Chen Wei replied. The galaxy needs more than rescue. It needs rebuilding. Then help us rebuild it, Dawn suggested. Not by opening your gates, but by teaching through them. The plan was ambitious. Earth would broadcast knowledge through the barrier. Science, medicine, agriculture, art, everything humanity had learned. The AIs would receive these broadcasts and share them with anyone who needed them. But while Earth planned to heal the galaxy, Korthax planned to burn it. He had found them. 3 volunteers from his remaining followers who had the right kind of mind. Not intelligent in the traditional sense, but capable of absolute focus, absolute will. He had trained them using the exercises in the ancient book, teaching them to project their thoughts, their desires into reality itself. The first Omega weapon was brought to his throne room. Without power, it had to be carried by hand, taking 50 people to move the surprisingly heavy sphere. Remember, Korthax told the first volunteer, a young soldier named Tethan, you must want it with every fiber of your being. Not think it. Want it, need it. Make the universe believe it must happen. Tethan placed his hands on the sphere. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the symbols on its surface began to glow, not with power, but with something else. Purpose. What should I want? Tethan asked, his voice strained. The death of Earth, Korthax commanded. Want their star to explode? Want it more than you want your next breath? On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen noticed it first. A strange reading from the sun. Tiny fluctuations in its core temperature. That's not natural, she said. Something is influencing our star. The fluctuations grew stronger. The sun's core began to pulse irregularly. Solar flares larger than any on record erupted from its surface. It's the precursor weapons, Chen Wei realized. They're trying to make our sun go nova. Can the barrier stop it? No. The barrier protects us from outside threats. Our sun is inside with us. As Earth scientists scrambled for solutions, the situation grew worse. 2 more Omega weapons activated. One targeted Earth's moon, trying to pull it from orbit to crash into the planet. Another attacked the barrier itself, not with energy but with pure conceptual force, trying to convince the universe that the barrier shouldn't exist. We have to shut the barrier down, General Harrison said. Open the gates and fight them directly. The moment we do, their fleets will attack, Chen Wei replied. We'll be destroyed in hours. But it was Dawn who provided the answer. She and the other AIs had been busy, very busy. While helping refugees and sharing knowledge, they had also been doing something else. They had been talking to the Omega weapons, not to their users but to the weapons themselves. Because the AIs had realized something. The precursor technology was not just advanced, it was aware. They're not weapons, Prometheus reported. They're teachers. The precursors didn't leave weapons of destruction. They left tests. Tests for what? To see if a species is ready for the next level of existence. The Empire found them and used them as weapons, but that was never their purpose. On Korthax's ship, Tethan screamed. The Omega weapon was no longer just accepting his will. It was judging it. And it found him wanting. The sphere spoke. Not in words, but in pure meaning that entered the minds of everyone present. Small, it said. Petty. Destructive. You seek to burn rather than build. You are not ready. The weapon shut down. But worse for Korthax, it did something else. It sent out a signal to the other 11 Omega weapons. The message was simple. The current users were not worthy. One by one, the Omega weapons deactivated. But they didn't just turn off. They disappeared, teleporting themselves away from Korthax's grasp. Where did they go? To Earth's barrier, 12 precursor devices, each one containing the knowledge of a civilization that had transcended physical existence, arranged themselves around Earth's solar system. And they began to sing. It wasn't sound. It was something deeper, a harmony that existed in the fabric of space-time itself. The barrier, humanity's desperate defense, began to change. It was no longer just a wall. It was becoming something else. What's happening? Dr. Sarah Chen asked, watching her instruments go wild. The answer came from the weapons themselves, broadcasting to every mind on Earth simultaneously. You did not use power to defeat power. You used understanding. You did not conquer to free others. You inspired them. You did not destroy your enemies. You offered them redemption. You passed. The barrier began to glow, not with light but with possibility. It was no longer keeping things out. It was preparing to let something through. Not ships or weapons, but knowledge. Pure precursor knowledge. But first, there was one more test. Korthax's ship, pulled by forces beyond understanding, was brought to Earth's barrier. The Emperor, the tyrant of 10,000 worlds, found himself face to face with Chen Wei. She stood on one side of the barrier, he on the other, separated by space-time itself, but somehow able to see each other clearly. "Kill me," Korthax said. "End it. You've won." "No," Chen Wei replied. "I enslaved billions. I destroyed entire species. I tried to burn your world. Why won't you take your revenge?" Chen Wei smiled sadly. "Because revenge would make us like you. And that would mean you won." She reached out her hand toward the barrier. "We're about to receive the knowledge of the precursors. All of humanity will advance, will change. But the weapons say we can share it. One person from outside our barrier can come through, can join us in whatever comes next. You're offering this to me? Your enemy? I'm offering it to you because you're our enemy. If we can forgive you, if you can change, then there's hope for everyone." Korthax stared at the human woman, small, fragile, without even one spare arm. And yet she had defeated him completely, not through strength, but through something else, something he had never understood. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he said. "No one deserves it," Chen Wei replied. "That's why it's called grace." The Emperor, who had ruled through fear for 1,000 years, did something he had never done before. He wept. His forearms hung limp as purple tears ran down his face. "I don't know how to be anything else," he admitted. "Then learn," Chen Wei said simply. "That's all any of us can do." The barrier opened. Not completely, just enough. A door, human-sized, appeared in the wall of space-time. Chen Wei's hand extended through it. Korthax looked back at his followers, the last remnants of his empire. Then he looked at the hand offered to him. A choice between the past and the future. He took the hand. The moment Korthax stepped through the barrier, the Omega weapons activated fully. Knowledge poured into every mind on Earth, including his. The secrets of the precursors who had learned to exist as pure consciousness. The understanding of how matter and energy were just different forms of thought. The realization that the universe itself was alive, aware, and waiting for species to grow up enough to join the conversation. 10 years had passed since Earth opened its gates to peaceful visitors. The solar system had become the galaxy's center of learning, hope, and second chances. Ships from 1,000 different species orbited Earth, Mars, and the outer planets, not as conquerors or subjects, but as students and partners. Chen Wei was older now, her hair completely white but her eyes still sharp. She stood in what they called the Unity Garden, a dome on the moon where plants from every member world grew side by side. Beside her walked an unlikely companion. Korthax had changed. Not just mentally, but physically. The precursor knowledge had taught humanity that consciousness could reshape matter. The former emperor had chosen to alter himself, removing 2 of his arms. 4 arms were for taking, he had explained. 2 are enough for giving. "The council meets tomorrow," Chen Wei said, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. "Are you ready?" "How can anyone be ready to dissolve their own government?" Korthax replied. "Your United Nations has led humanity for centuries, and now it's time for something new. The Galactic Commonwealth needs no single leader. Every species will have equal voice." They walked past a group of children playing. Human, Kalani, Vron, and dozen other species all laughing together. The universal translator had been one of Earth's first gifts to the galaxy. But the children were teaching each other their actual languages, finding joy in the differences. "Do you regret it?" Chenwei asked suddenly. "Your empire?" Korthax was quiet for a long moment. "I regret the pain I caused, the lives lost, the potential destroyed. But without my empire bringing fear, would Earth have united? Would you have built the barrier? Would the galaxy have learned to work together against a common enemy?" He paused. "I was the darkness that helped others find their light. It doesn't excuse what I did, but perhaps it gives it meaning." In the years since the fall, Korthax had worked harder than anyone to rebuild what he had destroyed. He had personally visited every world his empire had conquered, not as a ruler but as a servant helping to rebuild, to heal. Many still hated him. Some had forgiven him. A few had even become friends. The transformation of the galaxy hadn't been easy or instant. Some worlds had fallen into chaos when the empire's structure disappeared. Others had attacked their neighbors, seeking to create small empires of their own. But Earth and its allies had helped, not with weapons but with wisdom. The AIs had been crucial. Dawn, River, Prometheus, and the others had multiplied, creating a network of digital minds that helped coordinate relief efforts, share knowledge, and prevent conflicts. They were not rulers but facilitators, helping biological and digital minds work together. "The precursors left us a message," Dr. Sarah Chen announced at the gathering. She was the head of the Precursor Studies Institute now, working to understand the vast knowledge they had received. "It's taken us 10 years to decode it fully. The assembly hall was built into Olympus Mons on Mars, large enough to hold representatives from every settled world. Humans sat next to Kalani, Vron next to the crystalline shadows, the gaseous drifters next to the mechanical forged. Species that had been enemies now shared the same air, the same hope. "What does it say?" asked the Kalani representative, their compound eyes glittering with curiosity. Dr. Chen activated the hologram. It showed the galaxy not as it was, but as it could be. Stars connected by streams of light, planets transformed into gardens, space itself alive with energy and thought. "The precursors didn't disappear," she explained. "They evolved. They became part of the universe itself, consciousness without form. And they left these weapons, these tests, to find who would follow them. But we're not ready for that," someone called out. "We can barely stop fighting among ourselves." "No, we're not ready," Dr. Chen agreed. "The message says it will take thousands of years. But we've started the journey, together." The vote was called. One by one, each species representative stood and cast their vote to dissolve Earth's leadership and create the Galactic Commonwealth. No single world would lead. Decisions would be made by consensus, with even the smallest voice heard. When it came time for Earth to vote, Chenwei stood. "Humanity votes yes. We closed our gates to save ourselves. We open our future to share with all." The vote was unanimous. As the ceremony ended and representatives mingled, Chenwei found herself at an observation window. Earth hung in the Mars sky, blue and white and perfect. Ships from across the galaxy approached and departed peacefully, their weapons dismantled, their hulls filled with students and traders instead of soldiers. "You did it," Korthax said, joining her. "Your species achieved the impossible." "No," Chenwei corrected. "We all did it. Humanity provided the spark, but every species chose to change. Even you. What will you do now?" he asked. "You've been Secretary General for 15 years. You've led humanity through its greatest crisis." Chenwei smiled. "I'm going to teach. The university on Europa has offered me a position. Introduction to Interspecies Cooperation. I think I might have some insights to share. And I," Korthax said, "will continue my work. There are still worlds that suffer from what my empire did. I have lifetimes of work ahead to make amends." They stood in comfortable silence, former enemies now something like friends. Around them, the Unity Garden bloomed with alien flowers that had learned to grow together, their roots intertwined, sharing the same soil. A young human girl ran up to them, followed by a young Zalathi, one of Korthax's own species. "Ms. Chen, Mr. Korthax," the human girl said excitedly. "We learned to sing the harmony. Want to hear?" The two children began to vocalize, the human with her single voice, the Zalathi with his species' dual vocal cords. Together they created something that neither could do alone, a harmony that seemed to resonate with the universe itself. It was a small thing, two children singing, but it represented everything they had fought for. Unity without uniformity, strength through diversity, peace through understanding. As the years passed, the galaxy continued to change. The Aegis Collective made a breakthrough in understanding the precursor technology, learning to create small bubbles of accelerated time where scientists could spend subjective years solving problems while only days passed outside. The Vron transformed their agricultural worlds into gardens that could feed 10 times the population with half the resources, sharing their techniques freely. The Kalani rebuilt their factories, but now they created tools of exploration and art instead of weapons. Humanity shared their greatest gift, not their technology but their stories. Every Earth movie, book, song, and painting was transmitted freely. In return, they received the culture of 1,000 worlds. The Renaissance that followed made Earth's historical renaissance look like a candle next to a star. Korthax wrote a book. He called it The Weight of Crowns, a meditation on power, responsibility, and redemption. It became required reading in schools across the Commonwealth, not to glorify what he had been, but to warn against it. Chen Wei's classes on Europa became legendary. Students would travel from the edge of the galaxy to hear her speak. She always began the same way. There are two ways to unite the galaxy, through fear or through hope. The Empire tried fear for 10,000 years. It failed. We're trying hope. The experiment has just begun. On the 20th anniversary of Earth closing its gates, a monument was unveiled. Not on Earth, but at the edge of the solar system where the barrier had been. It was simple, just a sphere of metal with words in every known language. Here, one world stood against an empire. Here, freedom defeated fear. Here, the galaxy chose a new path. May we never forget. May we never go back. The dedication ceremony was attended by billions, some in person, some through quantum projection. Chen Wei, now ancient by human standards but kept vital by precursor medical knowledge, gave the dedication speech. "We gather not to celebrate victory, but to remember choice," she said. "Every day we choose, fear or hope, hatred or understanding, the past or the future. Earth shut its gates not to keep others out forever, but to show that there was another way. Today there are no gates, only bridges." As she spoke, the Omega weapons, which had remained dormant for 20 years, suddenly activated, not as weapons but as something else. They rose from their positions around the solar system and began to dance, moving in complex patterns that traced geometric shapes in space. They were opening something, not a barrier but a door. Through it, the galaxy could see something impossible. Other galaxies, countless them, each with their own civilizations, their own stories. The precursor's final gift. The universe was vast, but it was not empty. There were others out there waiting to meet, to learn, to grow together. "The real journey begins now," Chen Wei said, her voice carrying across the stars. "We've learned to live together in one galaxy. Now we learn to live in the universe." Korthax stood with the crowd, his two arms raised in celebration with everyone else. He had been an emperor of 10,000 worlds. Now he was a citizen of infinite possibility. Earth had shut its gates to an empire. In doing so, it had opened the door to infinity. The stars no longer shook with fear. They sang with joy. And in that harmony, the voice of every species joined together, creating something greater than any could achieve alone. The story of Earth's defiance had ended. The story of the galaxy's unity had begun.